March 25, 2025, 11:47 p.m. Tehran time. Deep inside the fluorescent-lit offices of Bank Sepah, Iran's oldest financial institution, and what the United States Treasury once called the financial backbone of Iran's ballistic missile program, a notification appears on the screens of senior executives. It's a message from a group calling themselves Codebreakers, and the words on that screen would trigger one of the most devastating data breaches in Middle Eastern history. The message is simple, direct, and terrifying. We have 12 terabytes of your data, 42 million customer records, account numbers, passwords, transaction histories, home addresses, military personnel files. You have 72 hours to negotiate. The price, $42 million in Bitcoin. If you refuse, the world sees everything. The clock starts ticking, but what Bank Sepah officials don't know yet is that this isn't just about money. This is about exposure, humiliation, and a digital warfare campaign that will shake an entire nation's trust in its institutions. This is the story of how a mysterious hacker collective brought Iran's military-linked banking empire to its knees, and how their refusal to pay would lead to consequences no one could have predicted. To understand the magnitude of what happened, you need to understand what Bank Sepah represents. Founded in 1925, Bank Sepah is not just any financial institution, it's Iran's oldest bank, deeply woven into the fabric of the country's military and security apparatus. For decades, the U.S. Treasury Department has maintained sanctions against Bank Sepah, accusing it of facilitating Iran's weapons programs and ballistic missile development. This isn't a bank where ordinary Iranians simply deposit paychecks and apply for mortgages. Bank Sepah holds the financial secrets of Iran's military elite, Revolutionary Guard commanders, government officials, and the intricate web of transactions that fund Iran's most sensitive operations. In the wrong hands, this data could expose military supply chains, reveal covert financial networks, and compromise the identities of operatives across the Middle East. By March 2025, Bank Sepah managed accounts for over 42 million individuals, nearly half of Iran's entire population. The bank operated under what its executives proudly described as impenetrable security protocols, with systems supposedly isolated on closed networks with no internet connection. They believed they were unhackable. They were wrong. The group calling themselves Codebreakers appeared seemingly out of nowhere in late March 2025. Their profile picture, a stereotypical hooded figure in shadows, likely AI-generated, gave no clues about their true identity. They had no prior history in the cybercrime underground, no previous operations, no reputation on dark web forums. They were ghosts. But what made Codebreakers unusual from the start was their methodology. Unlike typical ransomware gangs who operate in the shadows and communicate in English to maximize international pressure, Codebreakers posted their initial messages exclusively in Persian. They used Instagram, a platform cybercriminals typically avoid because it's easily traceable. They created WhatsApp groups to auction stolen data, a messaging service linked to phone numbers that parent company Meta is known to share with law enforcement. Everything about their approach defied conventional cybercrime logic. Security researchers would later analyze these choices and arrive at a chilling conclusion. This wasn't about money. This was an influence operation designed to humiliate the Iranian regime and destroy public trust in state institutions from within. How exactly Codebreakers penetrated Bank Sepah's supposedly air-gapped systems remains unclear. The bank has never publicly disclosed the entry point, but what we know is this. Between late February and mid-March 2025, someone or some group gained deep access to Bank Sepah's core databases. They didn't just skim surface-level information, they extracted everything, 12 terabytes of data. To put that in perspective, that's roughly 12,000 gigabytes, enough storage to hold 3 million high-resolution photos or 2,400 hours of HD video. It was a complete exfiltration of Bank Sepah's digital soul. The stolen data included account numbers, passwords, mobile phone numbers, residential addresses, complete bank transaction histories, and, most critically, detailed information about military personnel and Revolutionary Guard members who banked with Sepah. This was the kind of intelligence that foreign governments would pay millions to obtain. And now it was in the hands of an unknown hacker group with unclear motives. March 26, 2025. As dawn breaks over Tehran, Bank Sepah's Public Relations Department head, Reza Hamadanchi, holds an emergency press briefing. His message is defiant, almost arrogant. This claim is fundamentally false. Sepah Bank's systems are unhackable and impenetrable. Hamadanchi doubles down on the denial, explaining that Bank Sepah's systems operate on closed networks with absolutely no connection to the Internet. Therefore, he argues, a breach is technologically impossible. It's a blanket dismissal designed to reassure 42 million nervous customers and preserve the bank's reputation as a secure fortress for Iran's military elite. But codebreakers are watching, and they don't appreciate being called liars. Within hours of Hamadanchi's denial, codebreakers make their response. On their Telegram channel, they publish something deeply personal and humiliating: Reza Hamadanchi's own banking records, his account numbers, his transaction history, his personal financial life laid bare for the world to see. The message is unmistakable. You said we didn't breach your systems. Here's proof we own them. And we just exposed your boss's most private financial details to prove it. The move is devastating. Hamadanchi, the man who just hours earlier declared Bank Sepah unhackable, has become the breach's first public victim. Iranian social media explodes with mockery and disbelief. Journalist Ali Golhaki and countless others ridicule the bank for threatening legal action against anyone sharing the data, while simultaneously denying there was ever a breach. The 72-hour countdown continues. Bank Sepah's executives face an impossible choice: pay $42 million to criminals and admit they were breached, or refuse, and watch as their institution's credibility burns. Bank Sepah refuses to negotiate. Not $1, not one Bitcoin. Complete silence. According to posts on Codebreakers' Telegram channel, bank officials declined to pay any amount to protect their compromised customer information. It's a gamble rooted in pride, denial, or perhaps a calculation that paying ransom to hackers would set a dangerous precedent. But in making this choice, Bank Sepah seals the fate of millions of its customers. The clock runs out, and codebreakers prepare to execute their hack and leak operation. March 29, 2025, codebreakers begin releasing the stolen data, but they don't dump everything at once. They start strategically targeting maximum impact. First, they release the complete banking records of 20,000 individuals and corporate customers. Among those 20,000 are high-profile civilians, business leaders, government officials, and, most significantly, military personnel. Revolutionary Guard commanders, defense contractors, intelligence operatives, people whose financial activities were supposed to remain classified for national security reasons. Codebreakers distribute the information through channels specifically designed to reach Iranian citizens. They use Telegram channels, Instagram posts, and WhatsApp groups, platforms where ordinary Iranians already spend their time. The goal isn't to sell this data to the highest bidder on some dark web forum. The goal is maximum public exposure within Iran itself. Within days, the leaked data spreads like wildfire across Iranian social media. Citizens discover they can search for their neighbors, their bosses, their family members, and see complete financial histories, account balances, and transaction patterns. The privacy of 20,000 Iranians evaporates overnight. Bank Sepah's response is swift and authoritarian. Rather than apologize or offer support to affected customers, the bank issues threats, legal threats. They warn Iranian media outlets and citizens against republishing any information obtained by the hackers. The bank's statement invokes its position with the armed forces and emphasizes the critical importance of confidentiality of information related to the country's military and security institutions. Translation: if you share this data, you're not just violating privacy laws, you're threatening national security. You could be arrested. The regime-aligned newspaper Khabar Fori describes the entire incident as a psychological operation aimed at discrediting military officials. State media begins framing the breach not as a security failure, but as a foreign conspiracy designed to undermine Iran's reputation. But Iranian citizens aren't buying the narrative. Investigative journalist Yashar Soltani publicly states that the exposed data explains why Iranian citizens support the sanctions against Iran and demand financial transparency. The breach has inadvertently revealed decades of corruption, questionable transactions, and the financial privileges enjoyed by military elites, while ordinary Iranians struggle economically. As the chaos unfolds in Iran, codebreakers quietly pivot to a more traditional cybercrime revenue stream. They upload the complete 12-terabyte database to exploit. In a notorious Russian-language cybercrime forum that's been operating since 2005. On Exploit-In, they offer the data at a much more realistic price, far below the original $42 million ransom demand. The listing confirms what security researchers suspected from the beginning. The massive ransom was never meant to be paid. It was theatrical, designed to create headlines and justify the public data dump when Bank Sepah inevitably refused. Now, anyone with enough Bitcoin and dark web access can purchase the complete banking records of 42 million Iranians, identity thieves, fraudsters, foreign intelligence agencies. The data has escaped into the criminal underground, where it will circulate for years, fueling fraud and espionage operations across the Middle East. April 2025, codebreakers aren't finished. Days after releasing the Bank Sepah data, they announced something even more disturbing. They've compromised additional Iranian government systems and databases. They don't provide specifics immediately, but the implication is clear. Bank Sepah was just the beginning. The group appears to have systematic access to multiple layers of Iran's digital infrastructure. Whether they're bluffing or genuinely sitting on more stolen data remains unclear, but the psychological impact is immediate. If Bank Sepah can be breached, what else has been compromised? April 10, 2025, Codebreakers launched something unprecedented in the history of cybercrime, a video competition. They invite participants to create short videos highlighting the Bank Sepah hack, its implications, and the group's Telegram channel. They offer prize money in cryptocurrency as incentive. It's gamification of a cyber attack, turning a data breach into a viral social media challenge. Security analysts view this move as definitive proof that codebreakers are running an influence operation, not a traditional ransom campaign. No financially motivated cybercrime group would invest time and money into promoting awareness of their own hack. They'd want to stay hidden, sell the data quietly, and move on. But codebreakers want attention. They want Iranian citizens creating content, discussing the breach, questioning their government's competence. The competition is designed to maximize reach and impact, to ensure that every Iranian with internet access hears about how their military-linked bank failed to protect their most sensitive information. It's information warfare disguised as a hacking operation. Months after the breach, codebreakers' true identity remains unknown, but intelligence analysts and cybersecurity researchers have developed theories based on their tactics, targets, and methods. Theory 1. State-sponsored actors. The sophistication required to breach a high-security, military-linked bank, combined with the clear political objectives, suggests possible state backing. Israel, the United States, or other regional rivals with cyber capabilities and interest in destabilizing Iran are potential sponsors. The fact that another group, Predatory Sparrow, known to be Israel-linked, would later attack Bank Sepah again in June 2025 lends credibility to this theory. Theory 2. Iranian opposition groups. Exiled Iranian dissidents with technical capabilities and a burning desire to undermine the regime could theoretically orchestrate such an operation. However, most analysts consider this unlikely. Opposition groups generally lack the resources and expertise to breach an institution as hardened as Bank Sepah. Moreover, if opposition groups were responsible, they'd likely communicate in English to attract international attention and political pressure. Theory 3. Hybrid actors. Perhaps codebreakers represent a collaboration between state intelligence services and skilled independent hackers, a model increasingly common in modern cyber warfare. This would explain both the technical sophistication and the unconventional public relations strategy. Whoever they are, codebreakers achieved their objective. They humiliated the Iranian regime, exposed systemic security failures, and planted seeds of doubt among 42 million Iranian citizens about whether their government can protect them. The Bank Sepah breach created shockwaves that extended far beyond banking. For ordinary Iranians already struggling under international sanctions and economic hardship, the revelation that their personal data, held by a supposedly secure state institution, could be stolen and sold on Russian dark web forums was devastating. Customers began withdrawing funds and closing accounts. Rumors spread about other banks being compromised. Financial anxiety, already high in Iran due to inflation and sanctions, intensified into panic. The Iranian regime's initial denials and subsequent threats against anyone sharing the leaked data only deepened public cynicism. Citizens watched as officials who claimed their systems were unhackable were themselves exposed in the leak. The contradiction was impossible to ignore, and social media mockery of government competence reached new heights. Just when Bank Sepah thought the nightmare was over, it happened again. On June 17, 2025, a different hacking group, Predatory Sparrow, known for pro-Israel cyber operations, announced they had destroyed key data belonging to Bank Sepah. This wasn't a data theft operation, this was digital destruction. Within hours, widespread service disruptions were reported across Bank Sepah's network. Customers couldn't access online banking, ATMs stopped working, digital services collapsed. Iran's semi-official Fars news agency confirmed that Bank Sepah was experiencing widespread service disruptions following a cyber attack. The attack had ripple effects throughout Iran's economy. Petrol stations that depended on Bank Sepah to process fuel purchases couldn't operate. Daily commerce ground to a halt. Iran's central bank attempted damage control, claiming all banking operations are running smoothly, but the evidence contradicted their statements. Predatory Sparrow accused Bank Sepah of supporting Tehran's ballistic missile and nuclear programs, echoing the same accusations the US Treasury had made for years. The message was clear. Bank Sepah's role as the financial backbone of Iran's military apparatus had made it a permanent target in the shadow war between Iran and its adversaries. The Bank Sepah breach represents more than just another entry in the growing list of major cyber attacks in 2025. It marks a disturbing evolution in cyber warfare tactics where the goal isn't disruption or financial theft. It's psychological manipulation and the erosion of public trust in government institutions. Traditional cyber attacks follow predictable patterns: infiltrate, encrypt, or steal data, demand ransom, disappear. But codebreakers pioneered something different: infiltrate, steal data, publicly humiliate the target, distribute information to citizens, weaponize social media, and turn the breach itself into a sustained propaganda campaign. This model, what researchers now call a hack and leak influence operation, has profound implications for governments worldwide. If a sophisticated adversary can breach your institutions and then turn your own citizens against you by exposing corruption and incompetence, traditional cybersecurity defenses become insufficient. You need not only technical security but also institutional transparency and public trust, commodities that authoritarian regimes like Iran struggle to provide. The bank Sepah breach exposed several critical vulnerabilities that extend far beyond Iran. First, the myth of air-gapped security was shattered. Bank Sepah executives confidently claimed their systems had no internet connection and were therefore impossible to breach. Yet codebreakers still got in. Whether through insider threats, supply chain compromises, or physical access points, determined attackers will find a way. Second, the cost of denial is catastrophic. By refusing to acknowledge the breach and negotiate in good faith, Bank Sepah transformed a containable incident into a national crisis. Their arrogance ensured that 42 million customers' data would be publicly released rather than potentially recovered or contained. Third, the weaponization of stolen data has reached new sophistication. Codebreakers didn't just sell the information on dark web forums, they turned it into a multimedia campaign designed to undermine an entire government's credibility. Future attacks will likely follow this blueprint. For financial institutions worldwide, the message is clear. Security isn't just about firewalls and encryption anymore. It's about transparency, rapid response, customer communication, and understanding that in the age of social media, a data breach can become an existential threat in hours, not weeks. As of late 2025, codebreakers have gone silent. Their Telegram channels, once bustling with leaked data and propaganda, have ceased posting. Whether they completed their mission, were identified and neutralized, or simply moved on to new targets remains unknown. Bank Sepah still operates, though its reputation may never fully recover. The 42 million Iranians whose data was stolen live with the knowledge that their most private financial information is circulating in criminal networks, vulnerable to fraud and exploitation for years to come. The true identity of codebreakers, whether they were Israeli intelligence, American cyber warriors, sophisticated cybercriminals, or some hybrid entity, remains one of 2025's greatest unsolved mysteries. But their impact is undeniable. They proved that even the most hardened institutions can be breached. They demonstrated that data theft can be transformed into information warfare. And they showed that in the digital age, the greatest damage isn't always financial, it's the destruction of trust itself. The Bank Sepah breach wasn't just a crime, it was a warning. In an increasingly connected world where our most sensitive information exists as ones and zeros on servers somewhere, we are all vulnerable. Governments, banks, corporations, individuals, no one is truly safe. And the groups who understand how to exploit that vulnerability don't just want our money, they want our trust, our confidence, our belief in the institutions that govern our lives. Codebreakers may have disappeared, but their playbook remains. And somewhere, right now, another group is studying what they did, learning from their success, and planning the next attack. The question isn't if it will happen again. The question is, who will be next? And will they be ready?